Actions speak louder than cages or wings. Which do you prefer? Ask the birds. Fear or love, baby, don't say the answer. Actions speak louder than they speak louder than actions speak louder than.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Keen After Hours. I am Jonathan Silverstein, the Artistic Director, and I am so pleased you've joined us for another Monday evening chat. I believe this is our 10th After Hours in a row, which I am kind of amazed by. Tonight we have a really exciting guest, as always, and we'll bring him on board in just a moment. Before we get going, for those of you who are new to After Hours, we are Keen Company. We are an off-Broadway theater company located in New York, and like the rest of the New York theater community, we are on pause right now. And so while we're not producing in person, we are doing all sorts of things virtually over the internet, including meeting every Monday night to chat with our friends, alums, and associates about theater and life. So welcome. I'd like to start tonight's event with a land acknowledgement. We do this to recognize the long history of the territory where we live and work and its significance for the indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live here, and to demonstrate our commitment to addressing the legacy of colonialism in our work and practices. I am speaking to you today from Brooklyn, which is the traditional home of the Lenape people. Since our activities tonight are shared digitally to the internet, we'd also like to acknowledge and consider the legacy of colonialization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We're using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous peoples worldwide. We invite you to join us in acknowledging this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good use of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. So, without further ado, let me welcome aboard my co-hosts, Ashley and Billy.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So it seems like I didn't get the memo.
Oh yeah, we're doing only cream colors today.
Very creamy. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Billy and I call each other every morning to decide what we're going to wear.
Yep.
And I assume then you specifically say, let's not tell Johnny.
Absolutely. Every morning we almost call you and decide against it.
Well, we sign NDAs is the thing. So, you know, gotta play it safe. Come on.
Very smart. Very smart. Very smart.
Oh, thank God. Charles is here too.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, Charles.
Post Thanksgiving, Charles.
Happy post-Thanksgiving to everyone out there. What a different holiday this was. How were your Thanksgivings?
Oh, so lovely. So lovely. As I told you guys, I made 2 pies. The pumpkin pie was okay. A little too savory for my liking.
Okay.
But the apple pie was delicious.
We're going to need these recipes. There's going to need to be an after hours like
cookbook. Yeah. Exactly. We'll sell it at the Broadway flea market.
Mine will be useless. Mine will all be like, get it out of the freezer and heat it up.
Well, but maybe, there'll be something with dry ice in there, right?
That I can do.
Yeah.
I received, for the listeners at home, I received a package with dry ice in it over the holidays from my father, who sent me a pie, which is lovely. I did not know how to dispose of dry ice, but I did know the comical way to dispose of dry ice, which was to put it in my sink and turn on the hot water so that it bubbled up like a theatrical fog machine. Then I quickly learned that is not at all advised. So don't do that, everyone.
just
But it
love
was
the
a great
concept.
bit for like 5 minutes.
And your dad encouraged you in this, didn't he?
Absolutely. Thought it was hilarious.
Dads, don't you love them?
Don't you love them?
Shout out to Bruno.
Typical Thanksgiving, really.
What'd you say?
A typical Thanksgiving, really, you know?
I love it.
But I'm excited to be back and here at After Hours.
And I'm so excited to introduce our guest here at After Hours. Such an amazing actor, someone I've been a fan of for a really long time, who I saw in Peter and the Starcatcher on a field trip with my high school back in the day. But yeah, like I'm a big fan over here. So I'm so pumped to have this friend of Keen join us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Saldivar.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this special post-Thanksgiving episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to start by sort of informally introducing our guest. And I'm not going to list all your credits. Yeah, it would take too long. But I like to sort of talk a little bit about how you're connected to Keen. So I first met Matt at a bar, and it was actually the going away party for Carl Forsman, who is the founding artistic director, right before I took over. And I remember having a lovely conversation with you, and I asked you, I said, like, so what are you up to these days? And you said, well, I'm doing a show. And you were very sort of like, it was no big deal. And I was like, oh, what show? You know, I wasn't sure what I was expecting. You were like, well, it's this, I don't know, it's Peter and the Starcatcher. And I'm like, Peter and the Starcatcher? Like, what role? And you're like, take over for Christian Borle. And you really were so, you're
Really
so
underselling it.
that I specifically remember freaking out and going like, what?
Yeah. No, it took a minute to set in.
I think it was like the evening before you began, or it was very
well, that explains it. Yeah.
very close before you began. And since then, I know you've done a reading or two for our Playwrights Lab, especially Rinna Groff's piece. But you have a very close connection to Keen. You went to school with Carl, is that right?
That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah, we were undergraduates at Middlebury College in Vermont. And I was working for a theater company that's associated with the school, the Potomac Theater Project, and which was at the time was down in DC. And I had done my junior year in Spain, but I had left Middlebury having played Edmund in King Lear, and I guess that kind of made my bones in the theater department. So this next wave of students were coming up. Middlebury has an incredible culture of theater up there and incredible mentors. And there was all this energy in the department, and Carl was part of this kind of next vanguard of people coming up. So I got back from Spain, was working for their company down in DC, and he came down to DC to tell me what I was going to do for my senior thesis. And I was like, okay. So he directed me in my senior year, and we had a great time. Yeah, that time in undergraduate was so fecund and kinetic, and Carl was a huge part of that. And it was obvious he was a leader, and it was obvious that he was going to go on to do great things. And so that's another one of those examples of knowing somebody when, like, yeah, we were just kids.
What was the thesis?
It was a play by Keith Redden. I was getting it wrong. By Keith, lovely guy, and a fine playwright and actor. And it was two short plays, Keyhole Lover and Desperados, and it was really, really fun. And Carl was right. He picked great material for me and for the other people who were in the shows, and they were very, very satisfying and very successful productions.
Wow, I didn't know that Carl was a Keith Redeen lover even back then.
Yeah.
I think this may be wrong, but I know Keane produced Can't Let Go, which was a new
Right.
play of Keith's. And I think it may have been, this way may be where I may be incorrect, the first new play that Keane had done
Wow.
Wow.
way back when.
And wasn't Keith in a show?
He was. He was
Yeah,
in Conscientious Objector.
Right.
Yes, which was that show was amazing, along with Thomas J. Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Was Josh Bradford your lighting designer on that thesis?
He certainly was.
Josh
Yeah.
Bradford.
No, I mean, all the crew. Christian Parker was in it, and
Mhm.
Andy Dickey,
Oh,
the wonderful late Andy Dickey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we all worked on everything up there. There was just tremendous energy, and a lot of people. You know, Anna Reeder, you know, all these people came out of that moment. Megan Byrne. Trying to think of who else. Some other people who I'm sure have worked for Keane. But
I was gonna say you're basically listing our alumni list, so
yeah, I mean,
it was a
lot
real
of
pipeline.
great people.
Mhm.
I had an amazing time working with on a one woman show several years ago, and what a remarkable actor and human.
Yeah, and human. Yeah, yep. She's a dear friend.
So we like to sort of ask our guests a couple questions about their career and
I don't know where it's going.
we don't need to get into any of that. Kind of curious to know how you got bit by the acting bug, or was there a formative experience for you?
Yes. You'd think I'd have this answer kind of prepackaged. But
Sometimes it's not one moment though. Were you a theater kid in general?
it's not. I mean, I wasn't like when I saw. I think like when I saw Mikhail Baryshnikov dance the Nutcracker on PBS,
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Oh my god! Like that's what I want to do.
Mhm.
Like that's the most incredible thing I've ever seen." And I remember being really obsessed about that. I was into classical music. I played piano, and my brother is a very creative guy, and he was always kind of playing make believe, and I was, you know, the only other person in the cast,
Right.
and I was very eager to be in whatever world he was creating. And so that was a part, I think, an early part of that development. And then the third grade play was Hansel and Gretel, and I was cast as the tiny little man in the woods alone.
Everyone's favorite character of Hansel and Gretel.
Right? The crazy thing is he has his own number.
Really?
Yeah, and it goes like this: the tiny little man in the woods alone. His hair is olive gold and his shoes are brown. Hey, who can that figure be dancing there between the trees in his little mantle of velvet brown? End of song. That's it. So like I ran around in a cape that my mom made me
Amazing.
for that length of time. Like slid to the end of the stage for the big finish, and then I left. I have no idea who that guy is or what he's doing in the story.
Well, but you were the titular character of the song, so that you were the star in that moment.
I don't know what it is, like second act opener or something. I don't know. I don't know what that number
Is that song in your book now?
Yeah, that's your audition.
Like a sensible 16-bar cut.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was great. You know, I wore baseball pants and knee-high Argyle socks and a velvet cape and like a pointy hat.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoyed it. I was jealous that Troy Figgins got cast as Hansel, but
Troy.
and I had my own number. And it was many years before I returned to the stage. It wasn't until ninth grade when my friend Danny called me on the phone. Well, I grew up on a military base, and at West Point, and you go to school on the base until 8th grade. It's a very small community, and then but there's no high school on the base, so then you go to the town next door to Highland Falls. Okay. Billy Joel's got a song called "Summer in Highland Falls." Great song. It's a good summary, but it's a great town. Tiny high school. But that's when you start to mix with kids whose dads aren't in the army,
Right.
and it's like, and people who don't have two parents, and like all these like kind of like real world situations that like we didn't really we weren't exposed to very much because we lived in a gated like with soldiers, like gated community, and army kids always got kind of nervous about like, oh man, we're gonna go to school where like people have long hair and like smoke cigarettes and like, oh my god. So my friend Danny calls me up and he's like, yeah, so we're in 9th grade now. You want to go to a meeting of the drama club after school? And I was like, that's your plan?
That's a big time.
That's great. That's a great idea. And he's like, you don't need to act. You can like build sets or like do lights and whatnot. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I used to love to work with wood and things like that. So I was like, okay, great. But then of course, it's a trap. Like all the kids who show up, it's like, okay, everybody get on stage and do all the games and do all the, and it was an incredible group of people.
I love that this is what you did with your freedom of 9th grade. Join drama club.
And that's when I did my first high school play, which was Dracula, which was also the last play I did in New York at Classic Stage Company.
Wow.
Directed by my wife, which closed March 8th. But check this out. I just sort of shout out to the James O'Neill Drama Club and to West Point, Highland Falls. In that first production of Dracula, first of all, the guy who called me to go into the drama club is this guy, Dan, who is basically the guy who came up with the vaccine.
That's crazy.
Whoa!
Wait, tell us more.
Yeah.
What? What's his last name? Moderna? I mean,
no, but I'll I mean, I can say it. His last name is Wattendorf, and if you Google like the Washington Post,
wow,
it's incredible.
See, drama club kids do great things.
Yeah. Arts advocacy, guys. Arts education.
Yeah, Mike Doty, 3-record deal on Warner Brothers with a band called Soul Coughing. Guinevere Turner, who wrote Go Fish, the screenplay for American Psycho, Betty Page Story, Charlie Says.
Yeah.
Carson Kreitzer, playwright.
Wow.
Who else? Oh, this guy, Bill, who just helped me produce this production of Sam Shepard's Icarus in Connecticut just recently. Incredible group of people.
Wow.
Theater program.
Where's Troy?
I don't know. He went to West Point, but I didn't see much of him after that. But he's a really lovely guy too. But yeah, but I mean, my graduating class was like 120 people. So it's, and those kids came from all different communities because that high school served 5 communities. Anyway, drama club, I love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And then, so I did all the shows in high school because that was my handle, and I didn't like being on the tennis team. and then, I wanted to go to Middlebury and I applied as a theater major because I saw they had one theater, film, dance graduate the year before. And I was like, okay, all right, well, maybe that's my shot. And a guy who wrote me a letter of recommendation taught theater there, but I didn't really put it together. I wasn't aware that it was such an incredibly dynamic program. And so then, I did all the shows that I could in college. And then my mentor at the end of college, when I figured I would have, at a good school, found another path, like something reasonable. My advisor, Cheryl Ferrone, was like, you should go to graduate school. First of all, the guy who ran my high school drama department, Dan Christoff, was an extraordinary, wonderful person. I need to give him a shout out. And Kim Tiffany. They were incredible people. And Dan passed away when I was like in graduate school, I think.
Oh, wow.
And I had lost touch with him, and I regret it so deeply because he had such a huge influence on me. And he told me I should go to Juilliard in high school.
Wow.
I was like, what is it, like a summer program? He's like, no, it's like a school. I was like, well, when do you go? He's like, after high school. I was like, before college? He's like, no, instead of college.
Right.
I was like, if parents find out that you're saying this, like, you're going to be in so much trouble. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, ugh. And then, of course, anyway, so then cut to college, and my advisor's like, you should apply to graduate school. And I was like, for what? She's like, for acting. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, no, you can do an MFA in acting. I was like, huh. Like, where? He's like, well, Alex Draper went to Yale. I was like, university? For acting? She was like, yeah. I was like, sign me up. Like, I'll take a degree from Yale in anything.
Yeah.
And I did end up applying there, but I ended up going to NYU graduate acting program, and that's cut to here, I guess. Long story, but
wow. So it's a series of people convincing you to keep being an actor. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know that it took that much.
Sure, of course.
I think they were like, you want to do it, but somehow, I think not unwisely, there was always a voice in my head being like, that's crazy. Like, find something else, like, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, but like, but I guess not very far below the surface, it was pretty evident to important people in my life that I loved it that much. And
it's so great that you had so many people giving you really good advice.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and both of my parents are academics. They're both PhDs and like have their PhDs. And so like there was that thing also like, oh, wait a minute. I can get a master's from Yale, yeah. Like that'll buy me 3 more years for sure. That's totally respectable, totally legit. And safe, and safe.
So was it daunting getting out of grad school and having been in school basically your whole life? And
well,
now what?
I mean, yes, but I did take a year between college and grad school because I applied to some schools, but I hadn't, the idea came to me very late, or was presented to me very late. And so I didn't really orchestrate my approach thoroughly. And so the schools that I got into weren't my first choices. And so I was like, I'm going to go back to work at the Officers Club, catering weddings and folding napkins and living in my parents' basement. And I'll save money and move to New York. And so that's what I did with a kid from my drama club, and who then went on to get a 3-record deal with Warner Brothers. But yeah. Jeff Buckley moved us into our apartment. And then I worked at Keen's Chop House.
All right.
Yeah, which is a place I still love, but I was a busman there.
And that's how Carl got the name Keen Company from you.
Yeah.
So I worked there and reapplied to schools kind of with a greater sense of focus and got into my top choices and chose NYU. So I had a year out, and I'd done a show like in New York. I'd done another summer of Potomac Theater Project, and I'd done a show in New York with this kind of group of people that I met. So I'd had some kind of on the street experience, been working for a living and all that for a little bit. It was pretty nice to get back into school.
I bet.
Yeah. But then getting out of graduate school is really scary.
Yeah.
And it's, and I mean, one is always, or not one is always, I am always astonished at my naivete in retrospect. My first job was at the Public Theater in Shakespeare in the Park, like right after I got out. Yeah, but it was like, the jeweler and like the debt collector, it was like, and then I was understudying, which I actually didn't even really understand. But But I was at like another guy with a smallish part in my company was Michael C. Hall,
Crazy.
and Sean Thomas. Like these great actors who went on to great achievements. But it was like a little lost to me. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like you get into like the number one school in the country, you graduate, and you're like a third guy you're like your spear carrier. Like that's like what? And then you're auditioning for tons of stuff and whatever. Some people break, some people break. I didn't have a powerful agent. Like I was definitely lost again, and was just like, I can't believe you got to start from scratch again. Like, what's the point of going to a good school? Which I still kind of feel, because I feel like, well, first of all, like I thought, like going to what I was taught to believe in at Middlebury was like theater with great purpose. So like when somebody in my class at NYU was asked, like, so what do you want to do like when you get out of here? And I was like, oh, I'd love to like get on like a half-hour sitcom. I was like, what? What? Like we're supposed to be like the future of the American theater. Like, what are you talking about? People are like, what are you talking about? So I mean, by the time I got out, I was like, wow, I actually don't know what I'm doing. And like, it's amazing that Carl started this company, and you all have kept this company a vital company for 20 years. But it's like that, we need more theater companies, because so people have great careers, but not a ton of people compared to the number of people who pursue it and who love it, and devote a good portion of their time and energy and resource to it. But like people love theater, and people they come to theater, which is always amazing to me. But I don't know. I guess I still wish that I could have like become a company member of a company. Like, I worked at the Guthrie, and like you hang out with people or do shows with people who are like, yeah, I've done 72, productions at the Guthrie.
Those rep companies are non-existent now.
Yeah, I know. It's such a bummer. And I mean, we'll see after this kind of landmark time in our culture, like what happens to commercial theater, because I think not-for-profit theater, off-Broadway theater, regional theater are going to be very compelling places to work for a lot of reasons, and I certainly want to be working in those institutions, like in many ways more than in the commercial theater. Because you want to feel that you're part of a continuum and a construction of something, and like the kind of mercenary sensibility that you have to develop as a freelance actor is like, you can kind of lose sight sometimes of the drama club.
Yeah. It's I used to be a freelance director, and I would imagine it's really hard right now being a freelancer and not knowing when things are gonna get back going.
My wife is a freelance director, Sarna Lapine. She was supposed to do her revival of Sunday in the Park with George on the West End this past summer, and like all these incredible projects, Madame Butterfly Opera in Boston with Boston Lyric Opera, and all these, I mean, it's everybody lost things, and it's not even a question, that like everyone has lost. But in terms of like the theater, like, because you're always working, you're trying to build it, you're trying to get to the, I don't know, I guess just to the next job. But yeah, it's a very challenging time for people in our business. Absolutely, no question.
So, speaking of work right now, you just did you filmed a Sam Shepard piece for a high school. I wondered if you might tell us, first of all, I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your experiences with Sam Shepard, because I read this story today and I was incredibly moved by it. I'd be curious if you'd share that with us.
Well, thanks. As you can tell, sometimes my stories go on and on. So I'll try and do the short version of this one. So it goes back to NYU, my first year in NYU. And Marcia Gay Harden, who's a graduate of, or had been in the program, she left to do Miller's Crossing for the Coen brothers. But she was doing Sam Shepard's play Simpatico at the Public. And she brought Sam over to the NYU graduate acting program to talk to the students. And so we're sitting there and he's fielding questions, and he's talking about making theater in the East Village in the 60s. And a quote that I was reminded of recently, which I didn't include in my essay, was he was like, yeah, we'd put lights in coffee cans, chock full of nuts, that coffee, we'd put light bulbs in there. Those were our lights. We didn't have a ham sandwich, but we still made theater. And then somebody was like, hey, do you, I know you're an actor as well. What do you like more, being acting or writing plays? He's like, yeah, I'm an actor. I'm a playwright. I'm a screenwriter. I'm a film director. I've written novels. I write poetry. I've directed television. I write lyrics for songs. Yeah. At this point, I can write a play with one hand on the wheel. Next question. And I was like, what kind of answer what is that supposed to mean? Whatever. Like, Mr. Shepard, I put my hand up. I was like, Mr. Shepard, in a time of crisis, like, what do you think the role of an actor is? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. Like in a crisis, like a time of real crisis. Like, what is it? The role of an actor? What is an actor supposed to do? He's like, what crisis are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. He's like, what is like this apocalyptic view of the future? And I was like, no. I just mean like a crisis. He's like, what crisis? And I was like, I don't know, like an economic crisis, or like a civil unrest, or like a war, or like a plague. Like a time of real social upheaval. Like, I don't know. And he's like, look, I'm just not interested in this apocalyptic view of the future. No, I don't believe in envisaging ourselves as corpses of the future. No. What? So he goes on. Next question. I was like, I put my hand back up. I was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Shepard. I think you misunderstood my question. I was like, I don't mean like envisaging ourselves as corpses of the future. I just mean like my generation hasn't experienced like any event like that, like the Great Depression or a war or a plague, or, so it's like, but I feel like, that's going to happen in my lifetime. And so I'm just wondering like what, like in a time like that, what's the function of an actor? And he's like, I'm just not interested in this apocalyptic worldview. Next question. I was like, oh man. And I was really sore at him.
Oh my gosh.
Sore at him for years. And I used to walk around being like, yeah, and he said this and he said that. And I was like, you can play with one hand on the wheel. I was like, thanks a lot, Sam Shepard. And so then on September 11th, I was standing on the roof of my building in the East Village and with a video camera, and I watched the Twin Towers collapse in the video camera. And I turned to my friend, Brian, who's standing on the roof, and we were dead silent. And I just turned to him and I said, Sam Shepard. And he was like, what? And I was like, fucking Sam Shepard. And I was like, if I ever see him again, I'm going to tell him like that is what I'm talking about. Because I was an unemployed off-Broadway actor. Like, I worked off Broadway, and at that time I wasn't working. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's over. That's over. But then, whatever, life goes on, and I continued working as miraculously the way life kind of returns. Mm. And then I was playing a show with my band in the West Bank Theater, and I came upstairs, and there was this big gathering of theater people, older set, and I was like, oh wow, what's going on? It turns out it was Joseph Chaikin's kind of memorial dinner, founder of the Open Theater. And I look over, and there's Sam Shepard standing by the bar, and I was like, got to do it. So I went over, and like he was surrounded by people, and I kind of waited on the outside, and I kind of worked my way to the inside. And when there was like a little pause, I was like, "Hi, excuse me, Mr. Shep. My name is Matt Saldivar. I went to a graduate program at NYU, and Marcia Gay Hard brought you over. And you were like, I've done all this. I've done that. I can write a play with one hand on the wheel." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I was in Mr. Shep in a time of crisis." And you're like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm going to crisis." I was like, "You know, like a plague." And he's like, I don't believe in envisaging ourselves as corpses of the future." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm not talking about that." He's like, "I don't believe this whole back to world food." I was like, so then on September 11th, I was standing on my roof and I saw the Twin Towers come down. I turned to my friend and I said, "Sam Shepard." And I swore that if I ever saw you again, I would tell you that that's what I was talking about.
Man.
And he was just standing there with his whiskey and like surrounded by people, and everyone's like, "What is going on?" And I was like, you know what, though? In the intervening years, I must say, like, life did go on, and I continued to work. You know, like I've done a bunch of shows. I worked with the Guthrie. I just playing with my band downstairs, and so I guess what I've come to realize is that, in fact, like, you did give me an answer that day. In that answer you gave about doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that, and that's that, like, you just keep on making it. You just keep on making stuff. You know, you keep on keeping on, and you make art whenever, however. So yeah, thank you. And he goes, "You know what you are?" And I was like, "Oh." He goes, "You're a messenger." And I was like, "That's interesting. My grandfather was a messenger in the Mexican Revolution."
Huh.
And he goes, "Oh, sí, tu abuelo es de Mexico?" And I was like, "Sí." He goes, "¿De qué parte?" I was like, "De Zacatecas." "Oh, a mí me gusta mucho a Mexico." And I was like, "All right, well, thank you for your time, Mr. Shepard." He's like, "Thank you." So then this thing happens, right? And I come out to stay with my in-laws in Connecticut. And my high school friend from my high school drama club lives in Norwalk. He owns a video production company. And his wife teaches music in the New Canaan school system. And they'd seen a bunch of my shows. They saw Peter and Starcatcher. They saw a bunch of stuff. And his wife Monica was like, "Oh yeah, you know, while the lights are dark on Broadway, like, if maybe they're looking for somebody to work at the high school." And I was like, "Oh, that's so lovely of you to think of me. Thank you so much." She's like, "Cool. You want me to give him your name?" And I was like, "Sure. That's so kind of you. Thank you. That's really thoughtful. I appreciate it." She's like, "Cool. He'll call you." And I was like, "Okay." So the guy calls me, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's something I would consider." He's like, "Well, then you need to get an application in." I was like, "Okay." So I haven't filled out an application in 26 years.
Right.
And this is like the New Canaan public school system is an application. Like, it's like endless. And then it's like all your transcripts, criminal background checks, sex offender background checks, fingerprints. Like, it's like letters of recommendation. Needless to say, I got some good letters of recommendation and references. Like, yeah. Which was actually so wonderful, because it was one of my first chances to reach out to to my colleagues, the community. And so, I got some pretty great letters and references and whatnot. And so they hired me. And then I was like, and then they were like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And one of the plays was the dining room, which I know you guys did.
Yep.
Was it before Maine, after Maine?
Almost.
Almost Maine. Almost
Maine.
I was thinking, the Ethan Hawke series. And I was like, but like, it's going to be socially, it's going to be in masks, like, it's going to be no audience, like, what's going to work, like, what's going to. And I was like, it can't be a 2 hour and 20-minute production, like, it's got to be produced like for the internet. So I'd read a bunch of plays, and I was like, too long, the masks are going to be like too weird. I was like, it's got to be a short play. So I went to the New York Public Library and I was looking through short plays, and I found a collection of Sam Shepard short plays, and I'm reading through all these and all this whiskey drinking and weirdness and like sex and and I was like, I can't do that, all this full obscenities and whatnot. And then I got to this play, Icarus's Mother, and it's 5 young people on a beach in like a Connecticut style beach town. And it's this weird kind of like Jungian Greek myth, like rooted in Greek mythology, but also very 1965, which is when it's written. This kind of lurking sense of anxiety, groupthink, like, and they're all there. They see a fireworks display, so there's this weird kind of American dystopian thing, and I was like, if they're wearing masks, it's going to just enhance that. It's going to be great. And I was like, we'll put microphones in the masks, lavalier mics. I was like, and I'll get my friend Bill Fitzgerald, who owns a production company in Norwalk, to shoot it professionally. We'll make it 4 camera, and then I pitched it to the school after I got the job, and I pitched it to the school, and it was a hard sell. They were like, what's this play about? And I was like, see, that's the thing though. Like, we're going to figure it out, because it's like it's uncertain, and like we're in a time of uncertainty and like an anxiety, and like, these young people, like let's do something that's like where we are, it speaks to where we are. And even though it doesn't have the answers, and they're like, okay. And then I was like, oh my God, in a time of crisis, what do I do? What does an actor do?
Sam Shepard.
It's a Sam Shepard play for the internet, like for the drama club at New Canaan High School. I mean, it's just like
so funny.
Crazy.
Man, it's a great play though. It's so trippy, but
isn't it?
Play. They did that. I went to the Fordham Theater program, and they did that.
Oh yeah, great program.
Yeah. So I've seen a production of it, and it's
cool,
sensational. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, and of course, the weird thing is like, I think back to what Sam said, and it's like he was kind of doing that, like he kind of was like envisaging corpses of the future, like, but like at that time, and he's like, I'm not interested in that anymore, or whatever it was, It's like, you wrote this play, and like that's the play I'm doing. It's absolutely fascinating.
It was absolutely beautifully done. It was gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Interesting, because now that I'm thinking about it, you really didn't need an audience, and that was actually what made, like, because it was so, you didn't know where you were. It actually heightened it that they were in this big theater. We didn't even know where they were. Anyways, I thought you did a beautiful job.
Thank
what
you
a
so
way
much.
of adapting to this time. It was really resonant.
I'm so glad. It was an incredibly meaningful experience. And, it's like, this is the thing. Like, it's what Sam Shepard said to us was like, yeah, when we were making theater in the East Village, like, we just, there was just no stopping us. Like, we just made it. And that in connection with like high school drama club, in connection to off-Broadway companies, regional companies, and a connection to the commercial theater. Something that I often think of is that, like, it's always the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the experience of making theater is like, there are certain variables that are, a little different, but fundamentally, like my Broadway debut, this big musical, The Wedding Singer, like, I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, this is the high school musical, like, or this is like Shakespeare in the Park, like, like it's always the same thing, like the same kinds of characters, theater people, the same experience of like from the first read through like getting into the theater to like getting into costume, like doubting everything, just making those discoveries, like the feeling of coming together, for first preview or for opening night, the feeling of letting it go. It's like every time it's the same thing. It's so beautiful. I love that about theater.
Mhm.
You know, it's like community theaters, high school theaters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everyone can have that experience, like the full experience.
Mhm.
You know,
I completely agree. The creating of community that exists for that amount of time is such a beautiful thing. And then we go on and we do another one.
yeah.
And a lot of times you find your way back to the same groups of people over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So just
And that's what's so crazy is that that I ended up like in an unbelievably deep theatrical theater experience, like just recently with these young people at this high school, but like in like a real production, you know, it's an incredible space. They've got a real lighting grid. But you know, it was great. I was like, to the costume designer, I was like, I just wanted everyone to dress themselves like you are, like you should feel good about how you look, and it should be like how you feel at this time in life. And, you know, this will be the palette, but like, you know, we'll have like a costume parade. We'll be like, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Like, and that's in the palette. And then like there's a lighting designer there and a set designer. The set design was mine, and essentially the lighting as well. But he's an accomplished artist and technician. You know, it's like sound equally. You know, and then to be able to do this with my friend in the editing process, it was just incredible. You know, it's like real pros. And then the young people, because there's juniors and seniors. You know. They're incredibly sophisticated for their age, and for essentially being high school actors, but they're really operating at at a college level. And it was, just an incredible thing to it's for, again, like that to me, that's like a full production, full theatrical experience on par with any other. It's incredible.
It's funny because I wouldn't have thought that they were high school actors. I would have said it was a college theater.
Right? Yeah.
You did a beautiful job with them, and I must have been such a all-encompassing process for you.
It was the hardest I've worked on anything since my last summer of my master's in Spanish.
Wow.
I had to take like an extra course load because I missed a course my first summer, and like I thought that was like as close to like real failure as I've ever felt. Where you're like, I'm gonna, like, it's all gonna burn. Like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna get my master's because I was going to do South Pacific, the first national tour of South Pacific. I did over the summers up at Middlebury, so it's like 6 weeks language and no English, immersion program. And my last summer, I dropped out of the Toxic Avenger musical with Nick Cordero, with the late great Nick Cordero, and I left that show because if I didn't finish that summer, I would lose my credits, and so I left that show.
Oh wow!
Booked the tour of the Lincoln Center production South Pacific. Went up, took 4 courses, full load is 3, took 4, lit, like, and just absolutely lost my mind. And then came back, packed up my apartment, and started rehearsal like the next day.
Oh my God.
Next to that, this was the most intense.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It was super intense. But it felt so wonderful to have something to care that deeply about. That is in fact my work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I'm so fortunate. And,
Well, it sounds like sort of the classics started I'm hearing Balanchine, Dracula, Richard III, all of this really young and throughout your entire career. I mean, you're constantly doing classics. When did the musical theater piece come in? Although it's all sort of heightened language, maybe they're one and the same.
It's a great question. First of all, Dan Christoff, my high school drama teacher, was amazing. And my first musical was Damn Yankees, and there was a ball. It was an absolute ball. Loved it. I played Rocky,
So fun. Mhm.
and it was great. But then the second musical, I played Charlie in Merrily We Roll Along, which for a high school junior, like we heard that score and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's it sounded like Proust or James Joyce. I was like, this is way out of our league, man.
Mhm.
But it was an amazing production. Amazing. It was exquisite, and certainly in my memory. But that was the experience of it. Like, and we totally did it. We totally did it. And so I always loved to sing and all that stuff. And the program at Middlebury didn't do that so much. They did one musical. I was there, which was Two Gentlemen of Verona, that like 1970 the public theater version, which was cool. And then I didn't get a whole lot of attention in grad school in terms of like the potential to be in the musical theater, but I learned a tremendous amount there with Deb Lapidus. And she taught me a great deal. And
you were already a piano player, right? Is that right? You already read music,
I kind of dropped out, but I played in bands and stuff. I like to play. I love music. I love music. Bernie Telsey brought me in to audition for a revival of Working at the Long Wharf Theater in 1999. And I sang for Stephen Schwartz and all that, and like got the job, which I was kind of amazed at. Gavin DeGraw was in that before he became a superstar, and Alex Corey and Emily Skinner and
wow,
Ann Harada, like all these wonderful Ken Primus, Rex Robbins, the late Rex Robbins, incredible bunch of people. Chris Ashley directed it, and so that was my first professional musical, which has an amazing story behind it that there's no way there's enough time for, but it has to do with my grandmother writing to Stephen Schwartz. Let's put it that way. And then me being like, Mr. Schwartz, did you ever get a letter from a woman in Florida? And he was like, oh my God. And I was like,
oh my
incredible. So anyway,
that's for next. We'll do a part 2 after hours.
Yeah. So then not so many musicals until I was playing in a band. I was playing bass in this band called the Petersons, and we were a theatrical rock band. And I think, that kind of got me some attention because it was very much a theater community kind of event. A lot of people in our business would come, and we played a lot of shows. And so when Telsey, again, who I owe my career to basically, brought me in for The Wedding Singer, like I had long hair, I had a goatee, and I sang in like a rock voice, and I was like a kind of a clown who could play the bass, and they wanted the band to play on stage. So like I just like, and I think that some people really fought for me. I don't think I was that. They were like, everyone was like, absolutely. I think people were like, what do you think? And some important people were like, he's the guy. And so then you're like, suddenly it is another world. I kept thinking my work is the same. My work is exactly the same, but producers are looking at you like a racehorse, and you feel that, and you're like, oh, that's the difference. Like at a regional theater, people are like, we've chosen to have you be a part of this, and we're so happy to have you here. Same thing in companies, off-Broadway companies, not-for-profit theater. But like when you're in one of those things, like at 12 million or more, it's like you're like, why is there? What's this feeling I'm getting? And you're like, oh, it's the commodity aspect of it, and that's just about growing up and understanding understanding the world. It's not a good or a bad thing, but it's different. Wow. And then and so then after The Wedding Singer, I did Grease, and that's like I've ended up doing South Pacific, Toxic Avenger, Honeymoon in Vegas, Harps and Angels, the Mark Taper Forum.
Which I've been trying to find a bootleg of for years, man.
Oh, yeah. That was fun. Also incredible cast. And with the great Jerry Zaks. That was the number one reason I did it. I left the tour when my year was up of South Pacific. I auditioned for it when I was in LA, and I was like, I want to work with Jerry Zaks. And it was totally worth it. He's really, really wonderful. Such a great person of the theater.
That's great. Well, we only have about 5 more minutes, so I think, Ashley, we can dive into that Keen Question Bowl.
Oh, the Keen Question Bowl.
Surprise for you, Matt.
Is it like a breakfast bowl?
It's like it's not. It's almost. It's secretly a mixing bowl. Don't worry about it. This is off Broadway. So there's a bunch of random questions in here. I'm going to pull them out. It's sort of like a lightning round. Some are theater related. Some are just, fun facts related.
All right.
Okay. Do you have any good onstage or audition mishap stories you'd like to share?
Well, there was a time that I auditioned for the Mambo Kings. The Mambo Kings. It was supposed to be a big musical. And I brought in a song by a Mexican trio called Trio Los Panchos, called Sin un Amor. And I bought the sheet music, and it was crazy. It wasn't Spanish. Like, first of all, they were like, who cares? Nobody knows. It's like, Chamago dubita dazido. What? Like, what? I was like, that's all right. The notes must be there. The music must be there. So I gave it to Jay Bender, or rather to the accompanist, and I kind of couldn't get through it because there was just something off. I'd learned it, off the record, and something just wasn't happening. And Jay was like, "Okay, that's good." And I was like, "No, hang on. One more time from the top." And he was like, "No, seriously, that's it." And I was like, "No, I worked really hard on this. You gotta let me get through this, Jay." He's like, "No, that's it, Matt." And I was like, "I'm gonna play it. Start playing it." And he got up from behind the desk and walked up and like put his arm around me and walked me out of the room and shut the door. And my agent was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think Jay Bender's ever going to let me into the room again." Which, of course, was not the case. Jay Bender cast Grease and a bunch of other stuff. And he's a great guy, and I love him. But I was like, I got like physically removed from the room.
Wow. Right, that's a pretty good one. We'll allow it.
Yeah.
Dream roles.
That musical never happened anyway. Dream roles?
Dream roles.
Well, my number one dream role was Tom in the Glass Menagerie.
Oh, such a good one.
And last summer before COVID, out of the blue, I was offered that role at the Guthrie. Offered, like out of nowhere.
Wow.
And I was like, I'd done the Royal Family there with Rachel Chavkin, so Joe was aware of my work, but I was just like, what?
Wow.
But I was already committed to doing Frank and Annie Get Your Gun, directed by my wife, in Sag Harbor, and that's something that I really, really wanted to do with my wife, and so I passed.
Wow.
It's gonna come around.
It's gonna come around.
Yeah. But I mean, I was like, I thanked Joe Hodge. I was like, oh my God, like just to have received that offer is the most like moving, gratifying thing in the world. I just wish I could have done it, but I was committed,
Well, everyone's schedules are up in the air now, so it'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't even get this one open, so I hope it's a good one. Oh, favorite junk food. It's just a random one.
I just ate a pack of Chuckles.
Oh.
But I don't like the licorice one.
So you love the one.
So it's not my favorite, but I do like Chuckles.
Oh wow!
Chuckles. I don't know anyone who eats Chuckles.
Yeah, that's
No.
It's nice to know there's someone out there who eats.
It's because I'm 72. I take some snow caps, a zag nut, and some chuckles.
Oh man.
All right, last one. Any favorite theatrical experiences you want to share? Anything you saw that just like changed your life, other than the Nutcracker, which is a pretty big one?
Oh
It's
man.
a hard question.
Oh man. Oh geez. I saw Ian McKellen play Richard III
Oh.
at BAM, and that was pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, there's so many. Actually, I'll tell you what. I saw a flamenco dance concert in Madrid. Cristina Hoyos. Cristina Hoyos. That was one of the most transformative experiences I've ever had in a theater. Like really, like the theater like disappeared. Like I was in like outer space.
Mm-hmm.
With like a pin spot on a flautist and a flamenco guitar player and like a woman dancing. I mean, really like that thing about duende, like the spirit and like kind of quasi possession and in that kind of folklore of flamenco. I mean, it totally happened. I was,
Wow.
It was absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, I love dance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's really
Thank you.
pleasure, and it's been inspiring too. So thank you so much for your words of wisdom and inspiration.
Well, thank you for having a theater company and creating theater, sustaining theater, creating opportunities for people to make it and to enjoy it, consume it. That is an incredible, incredible thing. And, I'm just one of the many, many people who are deeply appreciative to you for doing that. So thanks for all of that and for having me in your conversation.
Thanks, Matt. And one day I look forward to having you at King Company.
I would love that.
I would absolutely love that.
Glass Menagerie for a future season.
Yes, exactly. I took note of that one.
Great.
Well, stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. What another great Monday with you guys.
Wow.
So great. And we have a great one coming up next week too.
Mm-hmm.
We have the artistic director of NATCO, Mia Kataback, which is very exciting. And I think she'll be our first artistic director that we've had on this show.
I think you're right.
Say for Johnny Silverstein.
Yeah. Billy and I might just jump ship. We're going to go to NATCO.
Yeah.
Oh, man. They do have a very nice office.
They have a great office.
There you go.
I think we might hear more stories about Mr. Les Waters, who we heard about with Kathy, because one of the shows that was canceled in COVID was a production that Les was going to direct. I was very jealous because it was a Pinter play, so maybe we'll hear a little bit more about that.
There you go.
Well, Matt's interview had a pretty high Johnny tearing up ratio, so we'll see if Mia can beat it.
It's true. And as always, I'm telling you, that intro video.
You never gets you every time.
There you go.
Well, tomorrow, for those of you listening at home, you might even be listening on Facebook right now. Tomorrow, as you probably know, is Giving Tuesday, which is a global fundraising campaign. And Facebook is matching donations given to nonprofits tomorrow, Giving Tuesday, December 1st. So if you're on Facebook right now, you can actually go to King Company's Giving Tuesday fundraiser if you'd like to make a donation, or if you want to get ready to make a donation tomorrow where it might be matched. We would be happy to have a donation of any size. You can double your impact tomorrow with a matching gift, but you can give any time to King Company and support our work.
Excellent. And I bet you might see these faces on social media a little bit tomorrow.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Suspicion.
Oh boy.
Well, thank you all so much for listening in again. We will see you again next Monday. But in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you on Facebook tomorrow and at the virtual theater soon. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.